I didn't even sleep long. Dude, last night I slept probably 2 hours.
Welcome in to another episode of Chiefs Focus Live. We've got a full show, a championship Super Bowl caliber show here for the next couple of weeks. Today we're going to talk about a couple of injuries. We're going to mix up the show a little bit. We're going to talk about Charles Omenihu, who tore his ACL. We're going to talk about the controversy in Kadarius Toney. I've got a fun conversation about playoff Pat. And because JP missed the show, we're going to go back and talk a little Chiefs-Ravens.
That's right.
My name is Quentin Morris. We've got Thiz running the show in the background. And now two guys who wish they could afford to look at Allegiant Stadium during the Super Bowl, much less be in it, is the old man, JP, and the Professor Caleb. How's it going, guys?
Oh, pretty good. JP can drive by it all he wants to.
I can drive by. I've
been inside the stadium. I did the stadium tour.
Yeah,
it's
cool.
pretty sweet, especially because Patrick Mahomes is going to win more playoff games there than the Raiders. So
yeah.
Good point.
I got to tell you, it is a sick stadium, and
it's pretty cool. If you ever have the opportunity, if you're ever out in Vegas, for a boys trip, or I don't know, if you live out there, you should go and pay the $50 to go and tour the stadium, because they do it's pretty cool. They take you through the whole stadium. You go into the locker room.
Yeah.
The stadium is covered in historic art, or art that was done in Vegas specifically for the stadium. They take you out onto the field. It's pretty cool. So even though you're giving your money to the Raiders, it is a pretty cool experience. Plus, when you stand at the 50-yard line, about 12 feet below you, there's a Chiefs flag.
That's right.
Fair.
Actually, he follows us on Twitter, and he posted it that he was going to be there at the stadium.
I hope so. Good for him.
So I think it's pretty cool. But a friend of mine bought season tickets for the Raiders. I think it was their first year open. And I got to tell you, it was the coolest season ticket box I'd ever seen. She brought it in. She showed it to me. Open it up. It has like a hologram video, like an LCD screen of the stadium. And then your tickets were just all chromed. I mean, it was just the coolest box. It was it looked like a cigar box. It was that big. And I thought, damn, man. I mean, you look at the Cleveland Browns, when you get your season ticket stuff, it's like a beanie and a little swishy thing that you put on your beer. And that's pretty much all you get. And a cheap cap with a strap on the back. It's not even a fitted cap.
$5.
So, yeah. So it was kind of crazy to think that they went all out like that. But, I mean, look, the tickets, the cheapest one right now, standing room only, is $5,800.
Yeah.
That's the cheapest one.
It's unfortunate that the Super Bowl has turned into such an event. It's great that it is such a big event, because it is great for sort of the whole Radio Row, and you sort of get all of the sports world to go to this one event, and that's all it is. No, there's nothing like the week before the Super Bowl for any sport here in the United States. The week before the World Series isn't like that. The week before any of the other playoff series that we have in our major sports here, there's nothing like it. And so the fact that the Super Bowl has become such a big event is great, but it sucks because a lot of us,
normal people can't afford
it. Are priced out of it.
Only the rich.
Yeah. People are, look, I mean, and right now, just so you guys know, there is what they call a Vegas premium on the tickets.
Oh yeah,
it's 147% higher than, I'm sorry, 111% higher than every other Super Bowl, even last year's Super Bowl. Well, you're basically paying for the fact that it's in Vegas. So not only do you have to travel to Vegas, pay for a hotel in Vegas, which by the way is 100% higher because it's the Super Bowl weekend. Then you have to travel to the stadium because you really can't park around it, and then pay basically $10,000 if you want a decent seat in your city. If you want a seat, I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
Because
my
from what I
family and I were
understand, it's
looking into it.
$5,800 for just a seat, or
My
standing room
fam-
only.
my family and I were looking into it, and not going to the Super Bowl, but just like going to Las Vegas and then being in a hotel and then going to one of those sports bars. They have all of these, Las Vegas has all those sports bars, and some of them are in
There's one
casinos,
for every team.
some of them are just around the strip, and then going and just hanging out and watching the Super Bowl there. But, it just basically as soon as the Super Bowl was announced, like the start of the year, that it was like, oh, it's in Las Vegas. And it was like, no way.
Yeah. And not only that, you're going to pay, if you want to go to that bar, any bar that's even close to the strip. I mean, when I say close, within, 12 miles of it, you're going to spend $200 to get in. There's a surcharge to walk in the door. So, but the one thing about Vegas is there is a bar here, a local bar for every team. So every team has its own bar here. The Chiefs actually have two. Now it used to be one, but now there's two here. So you can go to a local bar and watch it, but you're not going to, they're still charging, they're charging entry fees to get in.
Good amount.
Yeah. It's not cheap. I mean, unless you live here or you're loaded, you're fucked. I mean, when it comes to the Chiefs game, but kind of is what it is. Or coming to the Super Bowl, but and honestly, when you really think about it, the NFL shied away from having any real events in Vegas because of the allure of everything. But they put out mandates for specifically the players for each team and the coaches, anybody that's affiliated with it. They cannot gamble. They cannot go into a casino. They cannot do anything that is remotely close to having fun. That's period, end of story. You cannot do it. It's done. So if they're caught, they get the same disciplinary actions as if whatever it may be. I think it's a pretty damn big fine and a pretty good suspension. So
yeah,
I'm sure that I know the Chiefs aren't going to fuck around and do it, but who knows with the 49ers guys. I mean, I don't know. Most of those guys seem pretty straight up. I don't think they will either, but weirdly enough, other fans or other players from other teams that aren't in the Super Bowl can gamble. They just cannot bet on the NFL.
You're allowed to sports gamble as long as you are not at an NFL facility and you are not betting on the NFL. So
you can't bet on the NFL.
If you're an NFL player and you lived in the state of Kansas, you are allowed to pull out your phone and get on FanDuel or whatever, and you're allowed to bet on college basketball.
Yeah.
Right? You just cannot bet on the NFL, and you cannot bet on anything while you're at an NFL facility. Whether that's the stadium or whether that's even your practice facility, you're not allowed to do it.
Well, they made a different mandate for the players in the Super Bowl and anybody that's affiliated with the Super Bowl. They can't bet on anything while they're in Vegas. They cannot go to a casino. Now, if you are a player that, say you play for the Packers and you decide to come to the Super Bowl, you can go gamble. You cannot bet on any sports at all in Vegas. You cannot place a bet. That is their rule. The head of NFL communications was on today talking about it. And he said that it's very, very, very strict. And with the amount of cameras that are here, I doubt very seriously if any of those guys screw around. So it's going to be interesting. I think they're just trying to also keep a lot of the bullshit down. Every time there's something that goes on with the NFL here, there's a problem. Believe me, I know. I live here. So I know what it's like when they screw up. It started it started back when the Raiders really opened up their doors. But anyway, let's move on, man.
All right, let's talk about the 3 injury questions we have as of today. First of all, Charles Menahu, we know he tore his ACL. We know that he's not going to play in the Super Bowl. That sucks. Not just for the Chiefs, not just for him, like for the Super Bowl, but this team moving forward. Yeah. It's kind of a devastating injury in terms of the defensive line because he was really a big part. He had the strip sack. This was a guy that's having an insanely productive year for a guy that missed half the season. Yeah. So Charles Omenihu is a hell of a football player. He's a guy that knows the 49ers well because that's where he came from. So I think that is something that it really sucks that halfway through the championship game is when you get this sort of injury. Yeah. That sucks.
Yeah. And the crazy part about that is at the end of the game, he absolutely did not know he tore it.
Yeah, that was the
doing
report
just fine.
Out. Is that
well, he made the report.
Yeah,
he actually said
it. He didn't know until the day after, until they did the MRI, and that he wasn't putting much weight on it, but we've heard that before where, athletes, these professional athletes, they'll have like some insanely devastating bodily injury, and they're like, oh, they didn't know about it until tomorrow or the following day because the adrenaline's kicking in and you're just out there ready to go. That's crazy that he didn't know until they did the MRI the following day.
And the more
meanwhile, I get a
was,
paper cut and I'm on the ground rolling around,
asking for your mom. I know.
Yeah.
Mom.
It's mommy. Okay.
I know.
Get that right, please?
Mama. He was actually like jogging up and down the sidelines after he tore it because he thought he just hurt his knee. He didn't feel it. And the pain went away, and he was kind of moving it around and doing things on the sideline. And that's why he was like, what do you mean? Do I look like a guy who ain't going to play in the Super Bowl? I'll be playing in the Super Bowl. And then they told him he tore it. I don't think it's a major tear. I don't think it's anything that's, like career altering or anything of that nature. I think, in fact, he'll probably be back to the beginning of next season. But
could he technically still play if the pain's not bad?
I doubt it, just because you don't want to tear it any worse. And
yeah,
and you're going to have, even if it's just a partial tear, that's a major surgery. You're talking about the main ligament. You've got 3 ligaments in your knee. You've got the ACL, the MCL, and the PCL. And the ACL, the knee is a loose joint anyways.
Yeah.
So when you've got these 3 ligaments really holding everything together, you're tearing one of them. It's a significant injury, even if you just tear it a little bit. So he's going to have surgery. He's going to have to go through rehab to try and rebuild the strength back up. Plus, obviously,
I heard he called Aaron Rodgers' doctor to find out the holistic guy to see what he did.
It's not the same as if we were to tear our ACL because, our goal is just to be able to walk again. His is, I need to be an explosive athlete and beat up on other grown men playing in professional sports. So, it's even more of a higher stakes for him.
Yeah, I don't think. They're definitely not going to play him. That's not going to happen. But I don't believe for one second he'll miss any part of next season. I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay, let me ask you these 2 questions. JP, I'll let you go first, and then I'll go with Caleb here. So what does this mean for the Super Bowl? Omenahu being out, what does this mean?
Okay, first of all, don't forget we got Mike Dana, which has been a very productive player. I doubt very seriously if he's not in this game, if he's not active. But we also signed Bugs, and he's been sitting on the practice squad. He's a very productive player. The big talk has been bring in Frank Clark. That may happen. Who knows? It may happen just for the Super Bowl. I doubt it very seriously because he's completely out of shape. He is not working out. He's not keeping the shape. He's not ready to play football. There's no way he could step in and in 2 weeks be in football shape. Not going to happen. Not even 2 weeks. So that's not going to happen. But they do have enough players that they've got good players. And I think this is also a great conversation for Frank. And I'm sure this conversation's already been had. But this is a Chris Jones conversation because I know they really didn't have any plans on trying to re-sign him at a contract that was even close to what he had that he was asking for last year, which was around $26 million a year. I don't think they planned on signing him for that. Now, they may have to if they want
kind of
to.
Jumping ahead to the second question.
Oh, sorry.
Caleb,
you asked me, so I was putting it out there.
Yeah, what does this mean for right now heading into the Super Bowl?
They're just got the next man up mentality. And like just JP said, they had a couple of guys on the roster. It may be time to see what DK can do. So, they did pretty well with him not being there in the second half. They did a very good job of blitzing, disguising things. They're just going to have to continue to do those different blitz packages and figure out what's going to work. But I think it just becomes a next man up attitude, and we're going to have to see Unzama to see what he can do as a rookie. It's going to be in the bright lights and everything, but maybe it's time for him to just kind of let him loose and see what happens. So you got to do something. Next man up is kind of the best way to go, in my opinion, with this whole situation.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I do think that FAU might end up being sort of the solution, right? We know that. It's a big part of your defensive edge group. Maybe this means BJ Thompson and FAU start to get snaps. But we're talking about putting a rookie into a position. Now he'll be a rotational piece. So what sort of options does he have? Or do you just put the strain more on your guys? I don't know. But here's what I do know. that if there is another injury during the Super Bowl, you're really putting a lot of stress on that defensive line, right?
Mhm.
All of us felt good about the depth of this defensive line heading into the season. Losing Omenihu right before the Super Bowl, you can't really afford another injury. It will be interesting. FAU hasn't been active for a lot of the games this year. He's been a healthy scratch, which is fine. So will he be? I assume that he'll be active in the Super Bowl and he'll see some snaps. I'm not sure it's a significant amount, but guys are going to need to take breathers, especially if, for whatever reason, let's say Christian McCaffrey gets going on one drive and the 49ers have a 12, 13 play drive. That's exhausting for defensive linemen, So this is an opportunity for some of these other guys, like an FAU, maybe a BJ Thompson, to step in and possibly take a few snaps, take the load off, and maybe you have a big play in the Super Bowl. And if FAU has a big play in the Super Bowl, that'll shut up a lot of haters who don't like the fact that Kansas City spent a first-round pick on a guy that has not seen the field.
And here's another thing too. And before we move on, I just want to say my last thought here. BJ Thompson is very, very, very athletic.
Yeah.
One thing the Chiefs draft is because he can just get around the edges really, really quickly. I mean, the 49ers have a great offensive line, but if they can move some blitzes in specifically for him, I think the Chiefs will be just fine. Because without Omenihu, they did a very good job of bottling up Lamar Jackson. So I think we're going to be okay. But if you can add some more explosiveness with FAU or more specific BJ Thompson, you're going to be in a good spot regardless.
That's a good point with the bottling up.
I agree. And they did a great job. I mean, there is a difference between their running back and Christian McCaffrey. Now, there's also a difference between Brock Purdy and Lamar Jackson when it comes to running. So, I mean, I'm not seeing it as a problem. I don't think they're going to start FAU by any means. I think they're probably going to start Dana. I mean, I don't know why they would. You got a guy that's been a healthy scratch all season, and then you're going to put him in the biggest game of the season as a starter. I doubt it. He'll be a rotational piece, and I'm sure he'll be active. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bugs isn't called up and is ready to play.
Yeah.
He's been learning the playbook. He knows what he's doing. He can play every position on the defensive line. I just don't see how they wouldn't bring him up at this point. You got to have stability there.
Kansas City's got a week to make these. They don't have to do anything this week. They can just sit on it. They don't have to make any moves until the beginning of next week. That's when you need to start making some of these decisions. Okay.
I agree with you, Joe. I like that idea. I mean, Bugs in the middle, or Bugs can play the outside as well, but Chris Jones does a really good job on the outside.
Chris Jones has talked about, though, that he doesn't like to play on the outside a whole ton because he likes to come out. He likes to come out on the outside for just a couple of key downs because what he likes to do is he likes to overpower those tackles. And if you're out there for the entire game, they can adjust to your power. And if it's just a flash in the pan, those tackles just aren't used to that.
And that's a Joe Cullen. That's a Joe Cullen trait.
Yeah, so I don't want him playing outside for an entire game. I like it when it's 3rd and 17 in the third quarter. I like it when he comes out and comes out for those 1 or 2 plays because they're key moments. That's why we talk about him as a closer, because the coaching staff and he is going in those opportunities and those high leverage situations in order to make those big plays. I don't want him down there on a 1st and 10 in the first quarter. That's not where he's most valuable. Okay.
Well, the thing I feel like
part of the what?
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I feel like in this game he's going to be going everywhere, regardless we like it or not. He will be going everywhere.
I agree.
And I think he knows that for this game they're going to be doing different types of blitz practices, trying to move around different areas
100%.
Because Chris Jones can wreak some havoc. And this is what they're going to have to do to get after Purdy. I mean, they have a great offensive line. They have some great guys, but they're going to have to move in many different places to create some havoc. Yep. So he may not like it, but I think he would understand for this game, we need you for this.
And if they move him around, I think that's enough. You throw an offensive line off a lot when you move players around. Even if it's, it's not a design scheme, it throws people off. Yeah. And I think that's a good idea. So
let's do this quickly. With Omenihu being injured, what does this mean for the future? I know, JP, you were getting into that. So what does Omenihu's injury mean for the future heading into the offseason and the start of next season?
I mean, I know everybody says that we're probably going to have to draft somebody, which we already did. We do, we got a guy, but we're going to probably draft a defensive player anyway. But I don't think I don't think it's us moving up and drafting somebody sooner because of his injury.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's we have Bugs sitting on the practice squad. We have FAU. We still have Mike Dana. We've got players. And again, I was saying this before. This is a discussion about bringing Chris Jones's contract to the table, because no matter how you look at it, he's still playing at the highest level of anybody in football right now in that position. So I know he said Dana will be a free. I know he will be. But for this game, we have him. Now moving into the future, if he decides to, if they want to re-sign him, they can. But as far as Dan is concerned, I think it opens up avenues that the Chiefs can go and hang on to some of their players, but it also some of the free agents, I should say. But this also opens up the door for Chris Jones in a lot of different ways. Now, if he's going to be a jagoff about it and say, well, now that you need me so bad, I still want $26 million a year.
He's probably going to do that, to be honest with you, though.
And he may.
But that's a conversation really for another time, too.
It is. I mean, it's just, I think it's something that, they're gonna have to open up the door and sit down in a room and say, wait a minute, what are we gonna do about Chris Jones now? Because this kind of put a damper on our plans moving forward if we weren't going to bring back Chris Jones on a contract. This also, I got to tell you, this may alter their plans at the linebacker position as well moving into next year. If this injury is more serious, and I don't think it is, but if this injury is more serious than what anybody assumes it is, and they don't really have any idea of how he's going to play next year, meaning a Minihue, they're really going to have to look into that first and second line of defense and wonder, okay, do we need to hang on to some of these guys because we don't want any mess ups? I think we should re-sign our defense draft. Yeah, I kind of agree. I like our defense. I like what they're doing. As far as wide receivers are concerned, I still would like to have another one, and I'm sure they're going after one, and I pretty much know one that they're interested in. But I don't know, man. I think it's an open-ended conversation for Chris Jones and maybe even Mike Dana to come back. So, that's my opinion.
Caleb?
I mean, I kind of agree with JP for the most part. I do feel like they're just going to have to spend some draft capital. Regardless, you don't know what Chris Jones is going to do. He may come back. He may not. You don't know what's going to happen with Minihue and this injury. Some players can come back quickly. Some players cannot. So regardless, they're going to have to draft someone. Now, if the right guy falls to them, great. But they're just going to have to draft someone to make sure they can help bridge the gap in case anything happens. Because as we've seen, contract negotiation and injuries and things like that has caused an issue for this team in the past. I mean, we went through the part two, the whole saga of will he or won't he be with the Chiefs? I mean, with Chris Jones. So at this point, they're just going to have to draft someone and do their scouting department. There's always someone out there, and maybe they'll sign someone in free agency. They can get that could be for a better deal than what Chris Jones is asking for. So that could be something as well. But I also know, too, that they're just going to have to figure it out from the standpoint of drafting or free agency. So, again, that's just kind of up in the air. We're going to have to kind of see more whenever free after the season and kind of what we hear closer to free agency and things like that when March hits.
Yeah, look, if we're being – Kansas City is not letting all 25 of their free agents walk. They're going to re-sign somebody and a good chunk. Obviously we can't let – all-star special teams player James Winchester walk. That's priority number one for me to get back our long snapper. But
why did I expect that?
Look, for me, from a team building standpoint, I don't know if you can afford to sign Chris Jones to that sort of contract that he wanted. Now, maybe, this is a glass half full optimistic viewpoint. Maybe you can bring back Chris Jones. I think that honestly, this whole season has flipped my opinion on L'Jarius Sneed. He probably should be priority number one heading into the offseason.
Oh, yeah.
The cornerback franchise tag is $18 million this year. It's like 18.8. So, maybe if from the start, from the get-go, this is a conversation that isn't going to go very far, maybe you tag Sneed. He is 27, so you get him for his 28-year and you keep him on the roster for another year, then you move off of him.
Yeah.
But, I think that Kansas City has a lot. They're losing 3 linebackers, they're losing Jack Cochran, Drew Tranquil, and Willie Gay. So, yeah, this is going to be a difficult offseason. You're not keeping everybody. There are going to be 4 or 5 players that are not going to make this team next year and are going to go sign with somebody else, and you're going to hate it. But that's how the NFL is, right? About a third of the roster gets turned over every year, right? 25 players is like half the roster.
Yep.
As much as I hate to say this, I like Willie Gay. I love Willie Gay, but I could see them bringing back Drew Tranquil over Willie Gay.
Well, and plus Chanel was there. He literally fell to them, and I knew from the start he was going to be a replacement for someone in the linebacker room.
Right. Spot Track has Willie Gay's salary projection to be about $7 million. I think that's on the low end because I think especially if/when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, they'll pay. Not necessarily the Bears, for instance, but a team like the Bears will overpay a quality defensive player to come in and be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that flashy ring on your finger, I mean, you can think of all the Patriots players that it happened to, right? They were drafted by the Patriots. They won a Super Bowl. Then they went out to another team and got a huge payday. And because of that championship caliber, that they bring to the locker room. So now this is a conversation. We don't have to worry about this for another 2 weeks because unlike the other 30 scrub teams in the NFL, we're in the Super Bowl. So let's move on. Let's bust through these other 2 conversations real quick so we can get to the fun part of the show, talking about playoff Pat. Kadarius Toney, the controversy there. Here's my thoughts on it. I think it's stupid. I only want to talk about it because other people want to hear about it. So my quick thoughts are, you're on the injury report. I think that I don't want to say like shut up and dribble because that has a very negative connotation on it. But when you're heading into the Super Bowl week, this is just brush all that crap aside. As my life coach once told me and told millions of Americans who watched the TV show Ted Lasso, it's all poopy. Just let it go. Just let it go away, and don't have to even talk about it. So,
okay,
I don't really care that much about it, but
it's not even real. Fuck. For Christ's sake, this is frustrating to me. It wasn't his account. My God, man. I don't know. I mean, right when they put it out, I opened it up. I saw the actual name on the image on the screenshot, and I went, okay, let me look and see if this is him. I go to the page, and it says Kadarius Toney Sim account, and it has 2,000 followers, and it's following 2,000 people. And then I went to his real account. Somebody AI'd that voice and put it all together and did it. He came out and said the exact same thing. It was not him. You can tell it wasn't him. The way they were talking, they were trying to make it comedic. If you listen to the entire thing, it was almost like he was mumbling and saying weird shit like he was high or something. It wasn't him. He's made it very clear. The team knows it wasn't him. They haven't said a damn thing about it because they know it wasn't him. And they don't want to stir up any more media bullshit about it. It's stupidity that somebody went on there and did that. And it's sad that they did. It's probably a fucking Giants fan that did it because nobody likes him in New York, but it wasn't him. So anybody, all these stupid media outlets, ML Football and everybody else that ran with it, that's on you guys. You shouldn't have, because he made it very clear that it wasn't his account. He doesn't have anything the guy was with his baby during that time frame. You think he stopped and said, oh, let me put this kid down and ignore you so I can go and make this dumbass black screened audio message? Come on an account that doesn't even relate to me? Come on, man. I mean, it's just people do anything they can to fuck with the Chiefs. It is what it is. Tell me one fan base out there right now that is happy with the Chiefs right now. None. Believe me, I get 500 messages a day or posts on our timeline about how they hate us so much. And it's every fan base. It's not one, it's everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We are the new fucking Patriots. We're hated by everyone. And now they've got AI to be able to go out there and do whatever they want to do with it. And that's what they did. So get off his back. He's not that stupid. He's not. You think this man's going to go out there and run the rest of his NFL career by making some dumbass audio version of some crap that came? No, he's not. He's not unhappy with his position right now. He's not unhappy with anything. He knows where he's at with this team. It's not real. People need to let shit go. And when somebody comes on and says it's not him, then maybe you ought to take a look at it before you go out and rant and rave and call him all kinds of names. And honestly, the only people that were doing it were people that didn't know any better, and then other fans of other teams. That's who was doing it. Simple as that. It wasn't him. He made it very clear it wasn't him. Everybody did. So, I don't know, man. It's frustrating to me because it makes him look terrible. It makes the Chiefs look bad because they're not saying anything about it. And you got these media outlets that thrive on this People Magazine fucking inquiry bullshit. And it's I didn't know that half these guys turned into the Star Magazine. I mean, Jesus, everybody out there is looking for the next thing to slam the Chiefs about. And this was something that they put together to slam the Chiefs about. It's exactly what it was. Stupid. Mm-hmm. So let it go. Forget about it. It wasn't him. Find the next thing to bitch about. Find the next thing to screw around with people about, because that ain't it. You're mad because the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl and they're good, and become a Chiefs fan. Don't be stupid. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been on the show for a couple days, so I had to rant.
Down to knowing things, how it's going to work out next week. We're going to hear about it again, but this is going to be water on the bridge by this time next week. It may get talked about again, but regardless, it is what it is. You just got to move on, continue to play. So, not very much you can say about it.
So stupid. Anyway.
Okay, final injury. We can make this pretty quick. We've got our left guard. Tooney missed the game. And it didn't impact the game all that much. Nick Allegretti played amazing, fantastic. We gave him a ton of flowers on our show on Sunday. But the question is Tooney going to be back against the 49ers?
From what I understand, yes.
I would think so, because he was questionable up until the game, up until Friday, and then he was ruled out. Now you're getting 2 weeks off. I do think you should be optimistic about it. Heading into Super Bowl. But even if he isn't, you shouldn't be all that worried because Nick Allegretti played amazing.
Yes,
he did. He did. I did hear that he is definitely coming back for the Super Bowl. Barring some stupid, crazy injury, he's coming back 100%. So I wouldn't be concerned about it at all. I know he wants to play in this game, and he's doing everything he can to be ready for it. He was pretty close to being ready for the Ravens game. I mean, it was basically a strain. It wasn't. He didn't tear anything. The only reason
in the season.
What's that?
Will he have to get surgery in the season?
No, most likely not. I mean, he's doing everything he can to rehab it. As long as you don't tear it, you don't need surgery, and there's nothing torn. So
just have Allegretti just in case. Have him active.
Yeah, I mean, you got a great player as a backup just in case, but it doesn't really matter because honestly, I think given the fact that the Ravens are a very difficult team for most teams to control, he did a great job. There's no doubt about it. He did a great job. He did a great job before Tooney was here. I don't think anybody remembers, but he was really good.
Nick Allegretti was a 7th-round draft pick.
7th-round draft pick and played out of his shoes.
In 2019.
That's right. And he played out of his shoes. The whole time he was here, he played he had that one, I think it was it 2020, he had a little bit of an off a few games, but for the most part, he played extremely. I think he got injured, and then I
think he was with the Chiefs when they played in the first Super Bowl they won. I think he was the center, I believe.
Yeah, he was the center. He was the center.
He's been around for a while. He has.
And he can play multiple positions on the offensive line.
The fact that he only signed a 1-year deal with Kansas City last year and that no other team offered him a long-term contract blows my mind because this is a guy, he's not coming back to Kansas City next year. He's going to get outpriced by some other team. Some other team's going to give him a huge payday because he proved that he can play top-level guard in the NFL. So Nick Allegretti earlier this week, proved that, got himself a big payday.
And let me just say this really quick for all the fans out there that don't understand this. There's a reason why players don't rotate in and out a lot, especially when they're great players. Like that can be a starter on any other team, that's because most teams that have those great players as backups don't want film on them so somebody can come in during free agency and price them out of the market. It's a lot of the reason why teams do that, especially the Chiefs. We have a hard enough time signing players as it is on decent contracts. So why would you want film out there that can potentially get your good players taken away from you? It happens all the time with other teams because they don't have depth and they don't have really good quality starters that normally don't get injured. So, and then their players get priced out of the market and they're gone. We don't do that as much because if we don't have to, why would we? Why would we want to lose a player over having film? Is what it is. That's just how the NFL works. So,
okay, those are all the big injuries. We'll have more definitely next week. Probably not on Thursday unless something happens or we get some new information. But I want to move into our next segment, Playoff Pat. There has been a huge talking point about how Patrick Mahomes is simply different in the playoffs. And I wanted to do a little investigation and figure out, is that true, or is this just something that people say and he's just so amazing that he's really just the same player in the playoffs, but because you get to play standalone games for all these couple weeks and in the Super Bowl, is it really a thing? So I did a little investigation as I get my piece of paper right here and get all these from Pro Football Reference and StatMuse. Those are my sources for all of these in case, you don't trust me. I don't know. So I wanted to compare Patrick Mahomes' playoff rating compared to a couple of other guys that I think people would say are pretty good at football. And I wanted to compare their regular season career passer rating to their playoff passer rating. Now, I think it's fair to assume that everybody's passer rating from a regular season to the playoffs, there would be a natural dip because in the playoffs, you're not facing any scrubs. You don't get to face the Chicago Bears in the playoffs. It doesn't happen. But, you get to face the Baltimore Ravens and top-level defenses. So over his career, Tom Brady, who played in 48 games, had 40 interceptions and 88 touchdowns. His regular season passer rating over his entire career was 96.6. His playoff passer rating was 89.8. Both very good. Okay.
Very good numbers.
Peyton Manning, in 27 playoff games, he had 25 interceptions, 40 touchdowns. His regular season passer rating was 96.5. In the playoffs, it was 87.4. Also great numbers. Patrick Mahomes, he has played in 17. He has played in 17 playoff games, 7 interceptions, 39 touchdowns. His regular season passer rating, 103.5. That's pretty good. Yeah. His playoff passer rating is 106.3. His passer rating actually goes up 3 points, whereas Tom Brady and Peyton Manning lose about 10 points in the playoffs.
Wow.
Yep.
So this whole playoff Pat
is real.
Is different. He literally is better in the playoffs than he is during the regular season. This is a real thing. I then was curious. Okay, obviously Patrick Mahomes has a much smaller sample size than Tom Brady. But let's say, hypothetically, on his current pace, what would Patrick Mahomes' stats look like if he played 48 games on his current pace? So, like I said, Tom Brady, 88 touchdowns, 40 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, if he continues on the same pace, he would have 110 touchdowns and 20 interceptions.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yep.
Wow.
Who's better? Everybody out there, who's fucking better?
So
I mean, honestly.
I'm just letting you know. I wanted to compare one more quarterback I did the math on. I looked up Drew Brees because Drew Brees, out of all the quarterbacks that I was looking at, I wanted to find a quarterback that played basically the same amount of playoff games, but also was really good. I think we can all agree that Drew Brees was a very good quarterback. Mm-hmm. So Drew Brees played in 18 playoff games in his career. He had 15 interceptions in the playoffs and 37 touchdowns, which means Patrick Mahomes has half the interceptions, and despite playing one less game up to this point, has 2 more passing touchdowns than Drew Brees. Yeah. So this whole idea of playoff Patrick or Mahomes is better in the playoffs is 100% true, And it's not just something that because he's playing in prime time so often that you're just sort of building it up in your head.
No, it's absolutely real. I mean, we looked at these numbers. I was looking at them a couple of days ago, and I thought, man, he went 11 for 11 against the Ravens in the first drive. 11 for 11. Nobody can compare to what he has done against not only great football teams, but supposedly the number one defense in the NFL. That's who we played and really kind of pushed around.
So you want to hear some stats from this year? I brought up one specific stat, deep passes, right? Everybody knows that deep passes, they're a low percentage throw, but they're big impact, obviously. In the regular season, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense significantly struggled in that. You don't even need numbers to know that. You just know that. But here are the numbers for the 2023-2024 regular season in deep passes down the field. Patrick Mahomes had a 29% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 6 interceptions, and had a 34 passer rating. Okay? In the playoffs this year, he has a 43% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, and 128 passer rating. So not only did his completion percentage go a little less than double, but his passer rating went from like the worst quarterback of all time to even better than just his regular passing rating in his overall career play, which shouldn't happen, right? It should be lower than, because these are lower
top tier teams.
Throws.
Yeah,
these are lower percentage throws, and yet his passer rating is higher than his overall average.
Yep. So the moral of the story is playoff Pat is real. And for anybody that doesn't believe that, you're high.
I just wanted to like double check all this stuff. I couldn't believe it. Even if his numbers, his passer rating was like the same, I'd have been like, that's fine. But you really should expect a drop off because because you're facing better talent. The fact that it goes up, and I think this is just an overall summary of the Chiefs this year, where you have a team that played, horribly for multiple games this year. I mean, we can think about, they turned the ball over 5 times against the Broncos. They played horribly on Christmas against the Raiders. This was a team that a lot of people said that this is not enough talent on the offensive side, and this team should be pushed aside because they're not Super Bowl caliber. They don't have Super Bowl vibes, whatever. And when the playoffs hit, when it was win or go home, this team just is like, oh, it's fine. Let's just wipe our hands clean of anything that happened, and we're that team now. I mean, that doesn't happen in sports. Usually, the teams that people want to bet on, the teams that are like you're feeling good about, are the teams that have momentum, right? Think about all of the great playoff stories over the past 15 years. The Eli Manning Giants, right? It was this team's got momentum, they're going. When Aaron Rodgers took the Packers to his Super Bowl win, right? It was this team has momentum. The Ravens, the Baltimore team, right? With Joe Flacco, right? It was all about momentum. All of these teams that you think about that are great Super Bowl stories, that are really interesting teams, it's all about that momentum. Kansas City had no momentum, maybe a little bit because they beat the Joe Burrow-less Bengals, right? And you felt like that this team was maybe trying to come back. But if we're being real honest, there was no real momentum heading into the playoffs. And they beat the Dolphins, they beat the Bills, and they beat the Ravens, and here we are heading back to another Super Bowl. I mean, it really is just crazy, and I just need fans, Chiefs fans, anybody that's listening to this, any of, you need to explain to your mom or a new Chiefs fan, you need to explain to them that this is insane. This doesn't happen, and we need to enjoy it and respect it for what it truly is.
This is something, look, I said this on X or whatever the hell you want to call this when people were running their mouths about, I heard so many times, well, the Chiefs shouldn't even be in the playoffs. I heard this before the playoffs. Shouldn't even be in the playoffs. If it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for what? First of all, there is not a football team on this planet, and that I can remember in the 34 years I've been around this league, that a team, any team, had 40 drops in the regular season alone, and that doesn't include overthrows by Pat or any other mistakes and the momentum dropping to zero, your morale dropping to zero, and still come out and be in the Super Bowl. They weren't even thought about making it to the playoffs. They were not even a thought in anybody's mind to make it to the playoffs. Nobody should have ever discounted the Chiefs to make it to the playoffs. That was a stupid thing to do. I understand to a degree where people said, oh, shit, this team ain't going to make the Super Bowl. There's no way they're going to back-to-back Super Bowls. I actually had that in my mind for a little bit, for a couple of weeks. I know Caleb did. I know you did. Yep. Everybody had it. But the whole point is that they proved to everyone this year that, and people can say the defense carried them, whatever you want to say. Regardless of how good our defense was, you still have to put up points.
Well, fortunately, this is a team sport.
That's my point. You still have to put up points to be able to win, regardless of how good your defense is. Because eventually some team is going to sneak in, like the Green Bay Packers, and put up 27 points on you. The one and only team that did this year. So you have to take that into consideration when you're sitting there and crying in your Cheerios about how bad the Chiefs were this year. They still were a better football team than anybody gave them credit for. Proof is in the pudding. Mahomes, do you realize in the first, I think it was the Baltimore game, he had 135.5 passer rating at one point. 138.5, I'm sorry. He went 11 for 11 and a touchdown and was well over 135 passer rating.
Yeah.
That's fucking insane. Sorry, but that's insane. Nobody would have ever expected the Chiefs to go out there and perform the way they did, given the fact that Kelsey had a rough year, to his standards, I should say. MVS had a rough year. He played out of his shoes throughout the playoffs. Everybody that's actually stepped up that is not named Sky Moore has played very well. And making those adjustments has made a world of difference for this football team. Those adjustments are huge by not having a Sky Moore out there running the wrong routes. We know that was a mistake. They tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. They tried to help him along. Then he got injured. It was over with. But you have a great coaching staff that can coach people up. You got great wide receivers that are learning the system. And you got the best quarterback you can actually ever ask for that is going to help these guys along and keep their morale up. And that's exactly what he did, what Andy did. Everybody bitched about Matt Nagy. I was bitching about Matt Nagy. I was bitching about him in the Ravens game. I knew exactly when Andy Reid handed that play sheet over. You know why I knew? Because I saw 2 fucking screen passes in a row. That's when I knew that Matt Nagy was calling plays. I knew it. But it doesn't matter. We're still damn good. Yes, defense wins championships, but offense has to score. And if you're as bad as everybody made us out to be, we wouldn't have won 6 games this year. And I don't believe for one second that another football team out there anywhere could have done what our team did this year with what we had to work with. The only team I can say did that well and got to a Super Bowl at any point was the Baltimore Ravens in 2000. They went to a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer because their defense was so ungodly good that you can win by scoring 6 points. The Ray Lewis defense.
One of the best of all time.
One of the best of all times. I don't know if there's ever going to be a defense that they're probably the top 2 defense in the history of the NFL. Without fail, probably the top 2 defense. Trent Dilfer threw for 87 yards in that Super Bowl. 84 yards in that Super Bowl and won. He's got a ring because he threw for 84 yards. It's unfathomable to think that anybody would ever doubt Patrick Mahomes now, especially now, with what just happened in these playoffs. You can't doubt this man. And if you do, you're just a hater, along with everybody else that's hating right now. That's simple.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. And Kansas City.
Damn Skippy. Damn Skippy. I mean, we are the new Patriots. It is what it is. We're hated by everyone.
The villains.
We're the villains. And remember, do you remember, Caleb? I'm going to ask you this, Caleb. Do you remember I think it was 3 years ago when we were talking on this show and I said, for some reason, the Chiefs just play better on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't
I remember many of these conversations last year.
Yeah, and I said, man, this guy's just plays so much better on the road. And then I asked, And he said, his words, I just like to make people embarrass people in their own home. He never said it publicly. And then this year, he said, yeah, I like to be the villain. That's him embarrassing people in their own house. That's what he likes to do. He likes to go into your house, eat all of your food, and not say goodbye. That's what he likes to do. And he may kick your dog on the way out.
His words were earlier last week, or earlier before the Bills game, when he sat down to do the interview. His words exactly were, that he likes to be the villain.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice to be the villain.
Exactly.
That it's awesome to play in front of Arrowhead, but you know what? Sometimes it's good to be the villain, and that's the kind of mentality you have to have. I just want to answer one question in the chat.
Go ahead.
Before we get out of here, Chiefs fan 101 asks, "How do you feel about all the public money being on the Chiefs?" It should be, because if you feel like the two teams are even, if you feel like the two teams are equal on a lot of phases across the board, Patrick Mahomes is the ultimate deal breaker, right? That's why when the Ravens game was coming out and you were like, similar run game, similar offensive weapons, defenses are running 1 and 2 in a lot of categories. One has Lamar Jackson, nothing against Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback. One has Patrick Mahomes. So the default should just be, I'm going to bet on Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Think about it like this. You're playing in this playoff scenario. Take the Miami Dolphins out of it because they weren't top 5. The Bills, top 5 defense. The Ravens, number 1 defense. Then you're going to the San Francisco 49ers that has a number 3 defense. Okay. I understand why, there's certain places out there that have us the underdogs for this Super Bowl. I don't know if you know that, but there's stat lines out there that have us the underdogs.
The opening line, Kansas City was what, -2.5?
Now they're -4. Now they're -4 right now. So, and I think that's because of Minihue is the reason why it dropped a little bit. But when you're right, Quentin, there's one factor, and that's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
It's all it is.
Just a little fact.
And he does so well at keeping those guys under control. When they hit Pat late in that game, it took him and 3 other guys to keep the offensive line calm. And he got into the huddle, and his words were composure. I know what they did. Stay composed. I need you out here on the field. Mm-hmm. And they stayed composed. Yep. They went out there and did their thing. That's something that he is the ultimate leader, the ultimate competitor. And these guys know it, and all he does is bring their level of play up. Everybody on that football team, he brings their level of play up. And that's a hard combination to find. Brady, ultimate competitor. Was he a greatest motivator? No, he wasn't. He really wasn't. People can say he was great. He wasn't. I know people that played. I've talked to people that played with him. Caleb knows this. He wouldn't even practice with his 2 and 3 wide receivers. Ask anybody, 2, 3, and 4 wide receiver for the Bucs. He wouldn't even practice with them. When Mike Evans went down and Scotty went down and he was missing those 2 guys and Gronk was in and out of the game, he couldn't even score a point against the fucking Saints because they brought in backups that he never practiced with. Mm. You have to be good. You have to be that guy that talks everybody up, that brings everybody's morale up, that makes them feel like they're better than they are, even if they aren't. And when you make somebody feel they're better than they are better. And that's what he does. He could take an average guy and make them great. And it's not just, we don't have the wide receiver coach this year that made any of these wide receivers great. We know that for a fact. He's a first-time wide receiver coach that came off the defensive side of the ball. So we know where it came from. It's Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, those guys there, those 2, that combination, and along with Travis Kelce, because he's the ultimate motivator. No matter how bad a guy plays during a game, Kelce walks up. Man, don't worry about it. We'll get you the next time. You'll get it the next time. And then he works with them. I'm sorry, man, but, people can hate all they want. We're the luckiest fan base on the planet to have this man on our team. There's no doubt about it. And to all the rumors out there that Andy Reid's retiring this year, Mike Florio, go talk to a fucking wall because nobody's listening to you anymore. He's not retiring. He has no plans to retire. He's 64 years old. He's going to be 65. Belichick just now retired at 72. I'm telling you, he's not retiring. He probably won't retire. I don't even know if he'll retire when he's 70, because I think as long as Pat is here and playing at a high level, he's going to stick around. This is his chance. Something that he looked for from 2004 on. This is something that he wanted. And now he's got the opportunity to capitalize on it. And he's doing it. He's not going anywhere. And don't expect Travis Kelce to retire either, because he's not going anywhere. So, and by the way, I don't think Jason Kelce is retiring now. He made a very weird comment that it's going to be really difficult for him to retire, given the fact that watching his brother go to the Super Bowl again.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to try one more year. And I don't know if it's such a good idea, just given the fact that, I mean, they brought in Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator. What has he done for anyone? I mean, he didn't do much for the Cowboys. Definitely didn't do anything in the Chargers. So I don't know what good he's going to be with the Eagles. I really don't. And they got a lot of aging players over there, including Jason Kelce. I mean, he's 35 years old, going to be 36.
They're going to go young.
Yeah, Fletcher Cox is 37. So all I'm saying is that don't read into all this bullshit you see in the news, because most of it's fake, especially on X. It's just people trying to get clicks. Andy Reid is definitely not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So Mike Florio has been wishing that into existence for about 5 years now. If anybody, every year, this is Andy Reid's last year, I don't think he's coming back. I'm hearing, who are you hearing it from? Some guy at 7-Eleven? Because Andy sure as hell ain't saying it.
Mm-hmm.
He said, how good it, he said, what? Oh, have a good week. Have a good week, Joe. Thanks for joining again, brother. Thanks, man. So, yeah, I do want to talk one real quick. I didn't get a chance to say much about this Ravens game, but I do want to say this. MVS, thank you. You proved me wrong. You proved everybody else wrong. You are playoff MVS. You stepped up
Everything we
when it
said
mattered.
during the regular season was justified. But you know what, MVS? Good job.
Exactly. He did exactly what
pat
he
on the
needed to
back.
do.
Good job.
He said Sirianni's going out like Brandon Staley in 20. I agree. I don't think he'll be around. He may not make it through 2024. I think he's launched halfway through. And Belichick did the retirement thing just so he can go to the Eagles right afterwards. But anyway, this Ravens game was, first of all, it started off being chippy. It started off with them playing mind games, trying to fuck with Mahomes, getting Tucker down there to put the ball and everything on the 1 yard on the goal line when he should have been doing it at his own goal post, and did it earlier before our team went out to warm up. But he did it anyway. And when Mahomes asked him to move it, he ignored him and grinned at him. So everybody's saying Mahomes is an asshole. No, he wasn't. He asked him to move it. He didn't move it. So Mahomes did it for him. And then Kelce did it for him. What did it do to help your team? That's my question. By trying to ice Mahomes, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But then you had, what's that corner's name that got burned by MVS? Malut or something like that. Mm-hmm. He was the one that started the fight through the punch right at the beginning of the game, or right before the game. Yeah. Donovan Smith laughed at Roquan crying on the line. That's true. I don't know why they came in with such ill intent, but they did. And Mahomes capitalized on it. The defense capitalized on it. 2 back-to-back, a roughing the passer and then unsportsmanlike conduct. They were just out to try anything they could. And it didn't work for them. It cost them a lot. But Mahomes capitalized on it. And I can't say enough about how well these guys played. Travis Kelce, out of his shoes. Yeah, Arthur Malott, that's his name, or Malo, or however you pronounce it. And Zay Flowers, man, that guy, doing that little dance in the end zone, that cost him. But Snead, he'll be back. I have no doubt he'll be back with this team next year. There's no way the Chiefs are going to let him go. He is the cornerstone of that secondary. He played an excellent game. Excellent game. Everybody on that defense played so well. Everybody in the offense were clicking one after another. I mean, how many penalties did we have, Quentin? 2?
How many?
3, 4.
3 total, right? The Chiefs?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was insane how well they played. All in unison, all played well, all had the right mindset. I can't say enough about how well they played. And I'm really kind of surprised that the Ravens came out with that kind of an attitude. I mean, that just proves they were scared. They knew what they were going up against. And they probably knew that they weren't the number one defense because they know their strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And we made sure that we proved that we were the number one defense. I mean, 10 points. 10 points, guys. That's what they scored.
Yeah.
You can't ask for much more. And we're not playing. Look, if they were the number one defense, what are we going to do the 49ers as the number 3 defense in the league?
Well, you'll have to wait until next week to figure out, because that's when we're going to break down the 49ers and Chiefs Super Bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
And on Thursday, on our other show, we will talk about the 49ers and Lions game, because I have a lot of thoughts about how the Lions are probably stupid.
Yeah, I agree. He said that they had a party at Baltimore before the game. Mahomes and company wrecked that. That's true. He said, "Did you hear Zay Flowers' post-game comment about the Chiefs getting the call?"
I've said this before,
Wow.
and I'll say it again. Complaining about the refs is a loser mentality.
Yep.
Yeah,
Whether it's commentators, players, or coaches, it's a loser mentality.
it is. And just the fact that he said that, given when it was absolutely 100% that he didn't cross the goal line and that ball was punched out, that's on him.
Mm-hmm.
He cost him that game.
Yep.
So they can say what they want. The Chiefs played a better football game. And if they would have played clean football, they wouldn't have got those penalties.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple.
Yep.
With that being said, I don't think I have any more.
We covered everything.
Yep. Appreciate everybody for joining. And we'll see you guys on Thursday.
See.